The Timeline. The Faith Ralph Timeline. What really happened and when? September 2001, February 2020. Faith is born and grows up in Northern California. She is the first of 5 children spawned by Mrs. V and I, and the first grandchild on both sides of our families. She has stable upbringing, in a stable household with 2 parents that have no criminal history or future, and no history or future of drug or alcohol abuse. Faith was taken to every required doctor visit throughout her childhood. By age 3, she went to preschool a few days a week for a few years. Grades K-3 in one school, and then grades 4-8 in another right across the street. During grade 7+, Faith began to exhibit problems with discipline in her studies. However, I was very much the same way at that age, bored and more focused on drawing than school, so I did not think much of it. Mrs. V, the model student all her life, was much more concerned. Freshman year of high school was very rough. By the end of it, Faith requested to be homeschooled, so we signed her up with a program that allowed her to complete high school mostly online with some on-site labs. There were still a great deal of struggles, and by junior year, she was regularly lying about completing her schoolwork. When she was 16, I discovered that she had an online relationship with a YouTuber known as Jeebs. When I find out that Jeebs is 21, I email him and tell him to stay away from my daughter. I tell him not to contact her again, and that if she contacts him, to ignore her requests. Problem solved. Or so I'd thought. We would not find out until summer 2020 that Jeebs and Chris Kerr were the same person. There will be more on this later. However, despite these academic failings, she is sociable, kind, and well liked by everyone who knows her. In our care, she did not use drugs other than medicinal cannabis products after she turned 18 and got a prescription. Admittedly, it was not our favorite of her choices. If she used any other illicit drug, it was not in our house where she spent most of her time, and we never saw physiological signs to indicate otherwise. Not to mention that something like meth is very easy to recognize by the smell. Mrs. V having worked in a hospital ER, and me spending time working for a bank branch in a low-income inner-city region of North Sacramento. The burnt plastic smell of a meth user is fairly unmistakable and difficult to conceal. February 2020, June 2020. Faith barely graduated high school, based solely on an inability to want to do the required work. She has no learning disability and is quite capable of assimilating knowledge quickly and easily. I had to spend 8 to 10 hours per day, every day, for the final few months of school to make sure that she was doing work and would actually graduate high school. Obviously, we now understand that during that final semester of high school, Faith was basically on Discord all night and attempting to sleep all day. Of course, COVID did not help the situation. May 30th. Official high school graduation. We had family over and watched a pre-recorded ceremony. As high school graduations should be, all are in agreement that it was pretty lame, and ultimately my heart goes out to all 2020 graduates. That was a shitty way to celebrate a transition to adulthood. June 20th. Faith comes to work with Mrs. V and I at our coin shop. Midway through the day, Faith asks her mother if she can fly to LA for a week. Her story was as follows. Faith had 2 very close friends all through school, M girl and T boy. As the story goes, T moved into an apartment in Pasadena with a girl who was recently killed in a car accident. M was going to go down for the memorial. No funerals allowed in the area due to COVID, and both M and T had asked if Faith could make it down, as the 3 of them had not seen each other for quite some time outside of online. Faith offered to pay for her ticket, and we gave her some spending money. This was her first trip anywhere as an adult, and essentially on her own, but we figured baby bird has to learn how to fly sometime. There is a much longer story to this for later, but obviously, her trip to LA had nothing to do with a dead girl. M was in Michigan during her trip, and T lived in Reno and had a very much living girlfriend that he was not living with. The truth, which was not discovered, we had no reason to doubt her until nearly a month later, was that she went to hook up with Ethan Ralph and stayed with him at Dax Herrera's home. This discovery was made not by her admission, but her phone tracking was on the whole time. We knew the address she was staying. It had changed from T's apartment in Pasadena to M's cousin's house in Louisiana. Once Mrs. V and I had reason to believe that she had been lying to us for some time, we did some brief investigating. A simple, free public records search for grant deeds revealed that the house was owned by Dax Herrera, who we discovered quickly was Dick Masterson, and then that story came together pretty quick. But to make up a dead girl to emotionally goad your parents into unwittingly sending their daughter into the arms of her almost middle-aged simp boyfriend, that's some Scott Peterson shit. June 28th. Faith returns home from Louisiana trip. June 28th. July 2nd. Faith barely comes out of her room. Up all night. Sleeps all day. July 2nd. Faith asks if she finally comes out of her room and does some cleaning or anything to contribute to the household. Can she fly to Virginia to go to a baby shower for her friend, Audrey? We don't know who the hell Audrey is, and know that there's no way in hell Faith has the money for a trip to VA, not to mention that after she returned home from Louisiana, she hadn't lifted one finger to help around the house, and her room was quickly becoming a freaking biohazard. We say no to this request. July 9th. Faith runs away in the dead of night. Her oldest brother, B1, age 15, and I discover that she's not in the house. Sometimes she goes on a morning walk. But I have a pit in my stomach that tells me this is not the case. I get in our vehicle and go looking for her while B1 reaches out to friends online. Faith has turned off the tracking on her phone and has all of us, parents and brothers, blocked. B1 receives feedback from L, an online friend, former boyfriend, who confirms that Faith did indeed leave home, and left a note taped to her desk chair. The note states, in summary, an image will come later, that our family has a toxic dynamic, and that she's moving to Virginia to help her friend Audrey raise her baby. She plans to get a job and go to school, still wanting to become a teacher. I send her some generic email along the lines of "You're an adult and you're gonna do what you're gonna do." We think it's a bad idea, but what if, after the adrenaline wears off and we have some time to chew on what has been presented to us, Mrs. V and I know that her story doesn't make sense. We can only find one or two girls who could be known as Audrey in her FB friend list, but no one who is pregnant, and no one who lives in Virginia. July 10th. Having a day to digest all the new information, and fearing that this all may be a poorly thought out romantic interest, we send a new email to Faith, explaining that she had taken her phone, our property, her computer, our property, our special Disney suitcase. Hell, she even took her little brother's B2, 11 years old, shoes, because she couldn't find her own in the mess she'd created in her room. And honestly, that made me laugh a little. Because B2 was pissed, who steals their little brother's shoes? And that the value of these things broke the felony level for California criminal theft liability, $950, and that we were going to press charges and basically treat her like an adult. This was a bluff, of course, but we hoped that it would scare Faith, and draw out an overly protective, young, and thus immature, boyfriend to whom she'd fled. Needless to say, our gambit paid off, and within 5 minutes of our threat, we were met with a very aggressive email from an anonymous, almost certainly male, person, whose email name showed up as Rad Roberts. This was his message. "You don't know me, but I'm gonna let you know something. I know about you abusing your daughter. I have money. I will pay all her legal fees for the bullshit you tried to start, although the cops will laugh you out of the station, most likely. I am very well known online. You will be well known too, by the end of this. There is proof of your abuse, and many were told about it when it happened. Test me and find out. Keep threatening her with bullshit, and find out. Don't play with me or you will regret it. You're used to pushing people around. You won't be pushing Faith around anymore. It can get as messy as you want to make it. It's up to you. I will post the remainder of my conversation with Mr. Roberts in the privileged information section of this site, but there are two things I know. First, there is no proof that I abused anyone, for it has never happened. And second, obviously I was dealing with some young internet star. Well, I got 1 out of 2 correct. In his anonymous email, Rad Roberts all but told us exactly who he was, as Faith was too naive to lock up her FB account before she left, and there was Ethan Ralph's smiling face, linked to his site. Linked to his Instagram, behold a picture of a car in front of a restaurant. There was a car with VA license plate, and a Google search of the restaurant showed its location in Richmond, VA. Not sure exactly how long that mediocre detective work took. But if we'd ordered a pizza, background check, looking for sex offender, and thankfully it did not come up, or I would have been to VA and back to California before anyone found his body. But it's not like there's a clean criminal background, as many who are reading this already know. The first thing that stuck out, of course, was his age. Certainly, Faith wouldn't have chosen a 34-year-old man as a love interest. Perhaps Faith was indeed helping Audrey raise a baby, and was just good friends with this low-level e-celebrity. Who had come to think of her as a little sister? Denial is a fantastic thing when you're still trying to think the best of your little girl. Before we could call him out, Faith was still blocking us. We wanted a little more proof that she was with him. That was the night of the Kill Stream karaoke. I could not stomach to watch, but had some friends monitor while Mrs. V and I went to my mother's house where my brother and his family was visiting. And I got handily tanked, not a common practice for me, while Mrs. V got emotional support from my mother, her mother, and her sister-in-law. July 11th. Incidentally, this was Mrs. V and my 22nd wedding anniversary. We pretty much forgot about it. By morning, my friends had sent me links to the archived stream with timestamps of Ralph saying Faith's name several times, and then the coup de grace. Faith singing some song from an episode of Buffy the Vampire Slayer. I admittedly mistook it for a Fiona Apple song. Music. Not my thing. Well, that confirmed it, so I made sure that Ralph knew that we knew who he was and that we knew Faith was with him. July 12th, 30. Lots of drama that will be revealed in later sections as we maintained fairly regular communication with Faith, and uneasy, at best, communications with Ralph. Faith shared a lot of truths with me personally during this time, many of which were later revealed to be lies, including that Chris Kerr was harassing and stalking her and revealed that Chris and Jeebs were the same person. I asked her if she wanted me to deal with it. She declined. It is important to note that as a show of good faith, a pun, she had tracking enabled on her phone the whole time she was in Richmond, though to be fair, Mrs. V was intent on calling the police to do a welfare check the second her tracking was turned off, a fact both Faith and Ralph were aware of. At no time did Ralph attempt to keep Faith from communicating with us, despite there being some fairly nasty exchanges between he and I. This is not me coming to his defense, just stating a fact. I'm too often seeing people chasing the wrong threads on both of these characters, Faith and Ralph, when there's plenty of real shit that can be focused on. July 31st. Faith tells me that Chris is harassing her and asks me to contact his dad. The night turns into a clusterfuck of nonsense, where I reach out to Chris' dad, and he learns that Chris was dating Faith as a minor, and he basically kicks Chris' ass, takes his phone, changes the Wi-Fi password in the house. Chris continues to message Faith, and Faith continues to send me screenshots of the DMS, which indicate a clearly unstable young man, regardless of Faith's truth or lies about him. This goes on for a good part of the night, ending with me filing a police report against Chris for the continued harassment. I tell Faith to do the same. August 3rd, Monday. The Aid drama. Faith pitches to us that Ralph used her to cheat on Aid. Story looks legit, and obviously I'm motivated to convince her. Faith, apparently very angry at being used by Ralph, and she tells us that she's out. Mrs. V and my heart sing a merry song. Sure, I wish she would have realized all the other stuff wrong with their freak show relationship. But I'll take a win wherever I can at this point. I transfer $800 to her bank account, book her a room at the Richmond Westin, 4 stars and like $140 night. Richmond is not without some charm from a fiscal perspective. To check out on Friday the 7th. Extra money for food and entertainment. Faith agrees and says that she will leave Ralph in the morning. My instructions to Faith are to not tell Ralph where she has gone, and to block all contact with him. She agrees. August 4th, Tuesday. We ask Faith if she wants us to buy her a ticket home, or if she would rather that we come out and pick her up. Faith says that she wants us to come and pick her up. At this time, we cannot get away from work until Thursday night. I propose that we pick Faith up from Richmond, and then go to DC, take 3 nights at the Trump Hotel, see some sights. Neither Mrs. V or myself have been to DC. Spend some time reconnecting and working some shit out before we bring her back home and get her help for her depression and anxiety. Faith enthusiastically agrees to this plan. We buy 2 tickets to arrive in Richmond on Friday afternoon, and 3 tickets to fly back from DC on Tuesday. We book our own room at the Westin for Friday night, transfer another $200 into Faith's account to extend her own checkout at the Westin until Saturday. I book a room for all 3 of us at the Trump Hotel in DC for Saturday, Sunday, and Monday night, checking out Tuesday, and flying home Tuesday afternoon. That was the plan. August 7th, Friday. Mrs. V and I board our flight from California with a short layover in Dallas, and that's where we hit our first hiccup. Suddenly, while communicating with Faith, we notice that her tracking is turned off. After she makes up a bullshit story about how her phone showed it was fine, and she was trying to reset her phone. Her explanation was that her new friend May was taking her out on the town to help her deal with the breakup. Mrs. V is suspicious and wants to talk to her on the phone. More bullshit about how she has to wait for May to pull over, because May cannot drive if Faith is on the phone. WFT? So, obviously this is all lies. I tell Faith that we know she is lying, and to just come clean. She says that she's taking an Uber to Ralph's to grab some stuff that she forgot to grab. So, there's already more lies before our plane lands in VA, and neither Mrs. V or I are pleased. We land in Richmond, take fucking forever to get our rental, and get to the hotel at about 6:30-7 p.m. We let Faith know that we've arrived, but lo and behold, she's just too tired to see us. Really? Too tired to come up the elevator 2 floors or us to go down 2 floors just to say hi or thanks for coming? Whatever. We're tired too, so we say fuck it, turn in for the night, and make plans to leave in the morning. August 8th, Saturday. Operation Forward Richmond. Faith takes forever to get ready, not leaving her room until several minutes after checkout. Hugs all around, but I notice Faith's face when hugging her mother is void of any emotion, despite her mother face being streaked with tears.